professional, you would have come across different kinds of bosses, leaders who are at a senior leadership role. But I'm sure you also would have experiences in certain leaders who have been very toxic. You don't feel like going to the office just because you have to see them in the next morning. You feel demotivated, you feel stress, you are not engaged, you are always looking out that the first opportunity that you get new job or your new boss, and you just run away. And likewise, you also would have certain bosses whom you really love. You just feel like it's Monday morning, I should be in office, I should be working hard, I should make my boss successful, and you do not wait for a Friday evening that you want to run away. Rather, you are highly engaged, you are motivated, you are just adding a lot of excitement and energy in your work. With these two kind of leaders, I'm sure one thing is becoming very clear, that there is a common trait that defines leadership to its utmost certainty and inspirational ability. And that one trait that every leader must have is called emotional intelligence. A lack of emotional intelligence can lead to a scenario which I painted in the first scenario, while a high level of emotional intelligence is the second scenario, where people get inspired, they love to work for that manager, would love to work for a leader, and wherever that leader goes, you want to go along with them. So the common denominator is only and most importantly EQ, that is emotional quotient or emotional intelligence, as compared to the IQ. Well friends, my name is Arun Thukral. I am a life and a leadership coach, and today in this video I am going to take you through the most important components of emotional intelligence. At the same time, I would also be taking you to the concept of Hogan Assessment, that how Hogan measures your emotional intelligence levels and what role it plays in your growth as an inspiring leader. You have to do your own ref checks, whether in your current role, are you an inspiring leader or a leader where people don't want to work with you, or they just want to run away from you. I will give you a small assessment in the end. Try it out in your workplace and see if it really works for you. You will get the test on its own. So don't go anywhere, and don't forget to like and subscribe this channel. We are going to learn a lot with respect to what is emotional intelligence, how it works, and what is it to do with Hogan Assessment. Now let's take one scenario, and let's take the example of doctors. Let's say a group of doctors all passed out from a premium institute. Let's also assume that all the doctors got the topmost ranking. Now let's see that these doctors have passed out from the institution, and let's assume that all these doctors went on and joined a very big private hospital. No wonder they all have same education, same kind of technical abilities, how to treat a patient, how to save a life, how to manage a patient in a particular emergency scenario. But till this time, everything is equal. But from here, when the experience will start gaining, there is only one thing that will differentiate between a successful doctor as compared to an average or a below average doctor. It's his emotional intelligence. That means, how do they deal with others? How do they manage change? How do they listen well? How do they empathize with their patient? And that becomes the most common denominator or the most common trait that makes them successful. Now equate the same situation in your workplace. Let's assume that everyone has come, let's say, from different education backgrounds, and that builds up their IQ, that is intelligence quotient, which means how good they are in their technical skills and also how good they are in their cognitive skills, that is their level of reasoning and understanding a particular concept. But one thing which dominates, and that is the third thing, in progressing, in getting future promotions, higher increments, higher level of responsibilities, will be purely defined by emotional intelligence, because that tells that how do you deal with people, how do you nurture talent, how do you listen to them, how do you manage your own moods, how impulsive are you. All these factors are going to be detrimental for people to progress in their careers. That is why emotional intelligence is rated much ahead than any other skills that you should have. Now, let me give you an example. A study was done with 153 companies, and in this study, the first objective that was given is to identify the high performers in the organization. In that study, they realized one of the most important criteria of high performance was the profitability and also their ability to achieve the objectives of their respective business units. And what they realized, that they found 10% of the cohort was able to meet the required criteria in gaining higher profitability, higher success rate for their business units. And when these people were further interviewed repeatedly with different psychologists, one thing that came out very clearly, it was not just that they had a good IQ, it was not that they just have good technical skills, reasoning skills, but most importantly, these people had very high emotional intelligence skills. So repeatedly, it is seen that emotional intelligence becomes twice as important as compared to the IQ that an individual has. And that becomes the detrimental factor for people who go up the ladder and they keep on growing and keep on being successful. While some people who may go to a higher level by virtue of their hard work, by virtue of their performance background, but eventually they get limited somewhere and they don't go where other people are able to make it. And the differentiator is your ability to deal with people. In other words, we also call them the interpersonal skills. Now, in the next part, I'm going to tell you what are those interpersonal skills and what emotional intelligence components are there, and then how it is related to a Hogan assessment that will help you to analyze all these in a very quantifiable and a tangible way. Now, let's understand what are the components of emotional intelligence. Namely, there are 5 components of emotional intelligence which has been researched by the very famous Daniel Goleman, who has done this research somewhere in 1995, and he brought a book by the name Emotional Intelligence itself. And he devised these 5 key important words, and the number one stands is self-awareness, which means how well you know about yourself, your strengths, your weakness, your moods, your emotions in dealing with others. The second is called self-regulation. That means how do you regulate or control your emotions, your impulses which could be disruptive. That means how do you manage those times when you are going to be extremely volatile because of anger, because of anxiety, or because of stress. The third is called self-motivation, which means how do you keep yourself motivated beyond money or recognition. That means how much energy and passion you bring at work and you are able to focus on the larger goals that you want to achieve. Number 4 is empathy, which means your ability to deal with others, which means you respond according to the emotions of others, how much caring you are about people around you. And the 5th one is called as the social skills. That means how well you are connected in the society. How do you develop your network? How do you reach out to new people who are stranger to you? How do you become comfortable yourself in social settings where you don't have a very predictable environment. That means how good you are in meeting new people, which eventually helps in shaping your network. Thus, if you sum up together the five components of emotional intelligence, number one, self awareness, second is self regulation, and third is motivation. If you look at the first three, they are all internal. These are your internal drives. How do you manage stress, impulses, your moods, your volatility, your enthusiasm, your energy, your self confidence? Whereas the last two, that is empathy and social skills, they are external. That means when you speak, what is the tone of your voice? When you are explaining somebody with enthusiasm, how well you are connected with people. Are you overbursting yourself? Are you becoming volatile? Are you just becoming explosive? Or you become very soft with people is going to define your relationship, which means that if you have managed the first three components very well, that is self awareness, self regulation, and your social and your motivation, eventually you will be able to be good in empathy and also in your social skills. That is the reason emotional intelligence becomes a very, very important element in your leadership journey in inspiring people and creating a team which is long lasting and they look up to you. I hope this concept is becoming clear to you. What are the components of emotional intelligence and how they function at each stages. And that is why self-regulation is important to analyze that where you are currently in your current position with respect to all these factors. Now, in the next part, I'm going to tell you about how Hogan Assessment can help you to measure these components one by one in tangible form, and that will give you a proof of test that what you need to do next so that you can work on these competencies and grow as a leader. Now I'm going to take you through one sample report of Hogan that will give you some idea about that how emotional intelligence is linked and can be measured in all the parameters that I just mentioned ago. Now let's look at a small sample report that will give you some idea. Now, first of all, let me tell you that what you are seeing in front of you is called HPI, that is Hogan Personality Inventory. That is why it is mentioned as HPI, Hogan Personality Inventory. Now, important thing that you need to know, it is shown in the yellow color or a golden color because it is called as the brighter side of the person, which means your core strengths, which also means that how do you behave in a day-to-day basis with people, with your peers, superiors, and how do you exhibit your core strengths in explaining, in maintaining relationship, in winning your business. That's how your strengths get emerged. Now, if you look at these are seven scales, and right now I'm not going into the detailing of the each scale, but one scale which is very important is called as the adjustment scale. Now, one important thing I also want to highlight here is these scores that you see here is in percentile. They are not percentages, which also means that high score in Hogan does not mean you are good and low score does not mean that you are bad. Each has got a personality trait. Now let's understand that how Hogan measures your emotional intelligence on the scale of adjustment. Now, if you first understand the definition itself given here is that adjustment scales predicts the ability to handle stress, manage emotions, and listen to feedback. So if you remember, I talked about self-awareness, self-regulation, empathy, motivation, social skills. All these come under emotional intelligence, and handling stress, managing emotion, and listening to feedback is all about how do you behave and how do you understand well. Now, let's look at the interesting part in this report is which when I told repeatedly that you will be able to measure your emotional intelligence you will measure it by this way. Number one is empathy. As I said, empathy is an important component. So absence of irritability. Now look at this. The in this scale, it is showing 4 bricks, which means that it has got a very high level of empathy. Now the point is, even a high level of empathy is also not good because people will take you for granted. And a low empathy will also not be good because that means you get irritated very, very fast. You are highly complaining. So, as I said, high score does not mean you're good, and low score does not mean you're bad. The second is no guilt, that is, absence of regret, which means if this is high, you love to go back and you love to fight back and you learn from your mistakes and you would like to go forward. Even tempered, not moody or irritable. Now, a scale which is high, it means that the person is even tempered. That means he's not moody type. A low scale on adjustment will definitely show that a person is very moody and irritable. And that is why you need to have self regulation in monitoring or controlling your emotions, explosiveness in your behaviors when you talk to people. Trusting, again, how do you trust? So imagine if you don't trust people, your behavior would on them would be very meek. That means you lack trust. But if you are highly trustworthy and you trust people, that means you are not suspicious or paranoid. That means you tend to be more open with those people with whom you trust more. Again, when you look at this scale, it is absence of anxiety, which means with a high score, you are not tense. And when the scores are low, that means you're very, very volatile within. You're not happy within. And that is why you tend to put a lot of effort in your inside you. Then comes this calmness. That is lack of emotionality, which means if you are not anxious, you are not calm. But if you are highly anxious, there is also, if you are not anxious, means you are on a high scale. That means you are going to remain very calm on a particular side. And when you set calmness, if it is 4 score, it also shows that you are very patient. You're not impatient. And this is how, when it comes to no complaints, means you are not complaining. A lot of people who have high level of irritability, which means low empathy, they have an attitude of high complaint. ये ऐसा क्यों नहीं है? Why things are not like this? Things should have been like this. You should have kept your book here. Why you are always munching something in a meeting? Lot many complaints will come. And good attachment means that how well you maintain relationship with authority figures. A high good attachment also means that you could be a yes man, and a low attachment could be that you do not want to follow the instructions. Having said that, this is a small sample report of Hogan and one part of it that helps you to measure where you are. And don't forget the famous lines of Marshall Goldsmith, who said that what got you here won't take you there. That means this one scale of emotional intelligence is the detrimental fact. The more you go up in the leadership level, the higher emotional intelligence will help you to reach to the higher levels, whereas a low level of emotional intelligence will definitely put you at a ceiling. It will not take you ahead. I hope this video would have given you a lot of insights, learnings, that how your emotional intelligence is linked with Hogan assessment. You can measure it, and then you can plan an action for you, that what next for me? What all I need to do so that I can become a better, inspiring leader by managing my emotional intelligence. Thank you so much for watching me, and I hope this is encouraging and learning for you. Do write me back if you have any questions on my email ID, arun.thukral@hcnconnect.in. I will personally respond to you. Thank you so much.